He's a #1 Amazon bestseller. He's an NLP manipulator. He's a property course seller. He's a Lamborghini driving multi-millionaire property guru. Forget that same old boring I am me narcissistic podcast format, because nobody gives a fuck. This podcast is all about you. So I'm taking these few seconds to thank you for subscribing, to thank you for leaving your 5-star reviews, and thank you for sharing this show with all of your friends. My team and I will keep bringing you these episodes and answering all of your burning questions in my Facebook community group called Property Crash Course. If you can just keep telling all of your friends about this show. So there's a few tactics, there's a few things that you guys will need to know, because recently, obviously, it's the coronavirus, it's the pandemic, it's the economic crash and everything else negative that's going on in the world right now, which is terrible. It's heartbreaking what's happening. It's ruining families, it's ruining businesses, it's putting people out of business every single day in every corner of the world. So all we can do is, do things differently or change what we're doing right now and, take care of ourselves, take care of our families, take care of our investments, our portfolios, and obviously our income and our bank balance. So if you're a landlord right now, I completely understand that you probably have cash bleeding out of your property, bleeding out of your bank. If you have an empty property right now, it's tough out there. It really is tough out there. And again, some veteran landlords that have been around a very long time, sometimes, not saying all of them, but sometimes they do get a bit stuck in their way, or they just completely rely on a letting agent. And as you guys know, letting agents are where? At home. They're all at home. So again, they can operate from home, but they're not really doing viewings. They're not really doing valuations. They're not really as active as they were physically or with their presence before, which again, it's good in one way, but bad in another way. But if you're a landlord with an empty property right now that's coming up to be empty, or that is empty, or was already empty before the coronavirus, or you've got some tenants that have been struggling and now they've moved out or moving out. So I understand. I feel the pain that you guys will be going through. Now, when that's magnified into multiple properties, that pain can turn into, I went through it myself. It could be your worst possible nightmare. Having that multiplied in 2 properties, 5 properties, 10 properties, 15 properties, or even like me, 20 or more properties, where it's magnified and you're bleeding cash from everywhere. It could just, it's an absolute nightmare. I understand the pain for some of you guys that are going through this, because I've been through this myself right now during the coronavirus. And I've been through something similar a long time ago in the aftermath of the 2008 crash. But that was different. That was completely different. So talking about where we are right now, there's a few tactics, there's a few strategies, there's a few tips that I would like to share with you guys right now in this episode of exactly what I did to get all of my properties let. And I set myself the goal of letting all of them. And if you can imagine, we had a lot of properties which we short let on booking.com as well. So all at the same time like that, they all became empty. So because they all became empty, it was a race to get them prepared, get them ready, get them AST or tenant ready, that you could say. We don't use a lot of AST, so I'm just saying getting them AST ready or tenant ready, because we needed to bridge the gap on many of the properties, just bridge the gap. For some of you guys, you're just looking to find another tenant and stop the cash bleeding out. But for us, we do different things with the portfolio. Some are sharers, some are professional sharers, some are short let on booking.com, or you may not know about booking.com, but if I said Airbnb, we don't do Airbnb anymore. We haven't since 2016, but it's like Airbnb, but a much higher caliber of tenant, of client. They're not stags, they're not hens, they're not party people. They're more holiday makers, business guests, business travelers, etc. So that's where most of, nearly all of the properties that I had to rent in the last few weeks, that's where they were positioned in the market. Just to give you that background or that context so you understand that. But this works for any landlord. Anyone who has a property, whether you've got 1, 5, 10, 20, or even 100, or even 1,000 properties, okay? We're all in the same boat. And the goal is to get the property filled as soon as it's physically possible, so the rent starts coming back in and you can stop the cash bleeding out of your property, bleeding out of your portfolio. So what are the options, or what did we actually do? What did I actually do? And what did we help, our colleagues, our partners, our joint venture partners, what do we help them do? Because what I mean by this is, what I'm sharing with you guys right now, this was multiplied for me across multiple cities, probably five different cities right now. Maybe six cities. There's one other city, or it's a town, that we got properties in right now, different cities. There's multiple in each. And we had problems everywhere. And this is what we did. So if any of you guys have an empty property right now, it's coming up for renewal, or the tenants have gave notice, or they can't afford the rent and they're about to move out, or it was already empty, or it's coming up empty for any reason at all, this will help you guys. Now, you don't need me to talk about a mortgage payment holiday, because most of you guys, you'll already know about that. Talking to your bank, talking to the mortgage lender, and meeting that criteria to get up to a 3-month mortgage holiday. Now, that's something for you guys to look into. I won't go any deeper in that. But something else which works as well is, if you can imagine, or you don't need to imagine, you can understand that it's actually against the law, they're saying, to move house. It's actually against the law to socialize or do viewings, or for a business to still operate how it was before, which makes it very, 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 very difficult to do viewings. Now, what we learned quickly is, as soon as this coronavirus business, which is terrible, started, we had to make sure that, in anticipation of nobody being able to come to see the property, we had to make sure that we can still show it to them. So there's only one way you can still show the property to somebody without actually taking them there. Now, that's a video viewing. Now, lots of agents are trying this or doing this if they did it at the right time, but it's a video viewing. So all we did is we went to all of the properties and conducted a very, steady hand a viewing of the property, or like a video that we record once. So no sound, turn that sound off and just walk around like a 360-degree viewing of every single room of the house, like a walkthrough of the house. Now, I completely understand if you're thinking, well, I have tenants in there, I can't go in there, the coronavirus, etc., etc. In that sense, we had the same thing. And what did we do? We literally asked the tenant in the house to do it. So we gave them the parameters and said, instead of us coming round and you having to be out, during the coronavirus, what we're going to do is ask you politely, would you be happy to record a video walking around the house using these techniques? So it's nice and steady, there's no sound, there's no background noise, the lights are on, etc., etc., and the pillows are puffed up and the beds are made and any rubbish is taken out, etc., because again, they don't want to show you the house or the flat, etc. Very, very messy. You could treat it like an inspection. When they know the landlord or the agent's coming round for an inspection, what do? Tidy up. So when you say, can you send me a video of the property, what do? Naturally, they're going to tidy up. So you give them a few pointers and a few tips if they were going to tidy up so the house or flat looks at its best, and then they puff the cushions up, and then you subtly suggest that they hoover if you have to, and then you suggest, just a few things, and the windows open and the curtains open, the blinds up, let all the natural light in, clear any clutter, etc., just like when it was when we first showed it to you. Do you remember that? And that's what seduced you to take the property. So video viewings, it's really cool, guys. It's really easy. It's very fast. It doesn't cost anything. You do them yourself or get your tenants to do them. Video viewings. Let me jump in real quick. For all of the entrepreneurs listening right now, I know you're looking for strategies and tactics to increase your income, maybe even to get you out of that 9 to 5 that you hate so you get to spend more time with your family. I get that. And I want to be responsible for helping all of you guys achieve that. So I want to give you a free gift, which is a copy of my ebook. It's called The Ryan Otto Rent Arbitrage Machine. Now, it's a training manual that I had my team create, which takes you through the exact steps that I took after spending nearly 5 years in prison for a crime committed by a lifelong friend to then start over from £175,000 in debt with no money, no list, and no help. Now, what I share in this ebook is single-handedly responsible for turning every £1,000 of rent that I paid to a landlord into £3,000 of income every single month in my business. Now that leaves me with a gross profit of around £2,000 per calendar month for every property that I can go and rent from a landlord. Right now, I'm giving away this ebook. It's 100% free. All you need to do to get a copy is subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already, leave a 5-star review, and email a screen print of that review to my team at teamryan@theybuyanyhome.com, and we'll get a copy of the Rent Arbitrage Machine to you guys. Now, something else, if it's completely empty, this is what works for us. This works, okay? If you can imagine, there's a lot of property on the market at the same time. Why would somebody choose your property over somebody else's property unless it was just aggressively priced, okay? If it's just aggressively priced, some people are just looking for price or the lowest price. But other people are looking for different things. It could be identical. It could be the same price, but there's something that makes one stand out more than another. Now, that comes down to dressing and styling. Now, if it's a furnished property, it's very, very easy to do that, dressing and styling. Let me give you an example. There's some properties that I'm constantly looking at properties, constantly doing deals, constantly looking for the next deals. Now, there was some properties that I looked at which have been languishing on the market. They were sitting on the market for a very long time. Now, these are just rental properties I'm talking about, okay? Now, they were sitting there for a very long time. Now, they're still the same properties, okay? I took them on, but I did something different, and it enabled me to rent them in a matter of probably 3 weeks compared to 5 months that they've been sitting empty for. And instead of the rent, which I agreed these properties at, which was very, very, very low, for example, one was renting for around about $2,600 a month, and I managed to get it for $900. That's right, £900 I agreed, and it was renting for around $2,600. And it just comes down to, we didn't do any painting, we didn't do any decorating, we didn't change anything structurally, we didn't do anything else apart from dress and style that property. It didn't cost a fortune. It probably cost me in the region of about £500 for our dressing and styling pack, which we used on that particular property. That's just one. If you're already shortletting on Booking.com or Airbnb and you're not generating $8,200 for your 3 beds, $6,200 for your 2 beds, or even $4,100 for your 1 beds each month, then oh my goodness, you're losing money every single month. Now, I created an ebook to show you exactly how we hit those numbers consistently in my business, and I want to give you a free copy so I can show you exactly how you can do the same. Just go to www.theyrentanyhome.com/free book and tell me where to send your copy. Does that make sense? That's just one property. I could reel off lots and lots and lots of different properties that we looked at They were stuck on the market, not going anywhere. I agreed the price way below the market rent just because nobody wanted them. And it all came down to the dressing and the styling, which I sent my stylist in to dress, style, and photograph the property. We didn't do anything else apart from advertise it, dressed and styled. So if you have a property, it's sitting on the market, it's empty, okay, and you need to fill it, if it's furnished or part furnished, you have to invest. You have to invest in a furniture or styling or dressing pack. I mean, you can get these things from Primark, Marks and Spencer's, Debenhams, and the Pound Shop. These are the shops that we use, and it's the same again and again and again and again and again and again in every city we're in. Wherever that may be, Brighton, Eastbourne, Hastings, Portsmouth, Southampton, Poole, Sandbanks, Bournemouth. Wherever we are, it doesn't matter. It's the same shops that we use for the same dressing and styling, just to make the property appealing. Now, I completely understand if the property is empty, if it's not furnished at all. If it's not furnished at all, you just need to make sure that it's just presented in the best possible light that it can be. That also includes the curtains, that they're in good condition, or the blinds. It also, you have to ensure that it's photographed well. The pictures is the first thing that the people see on the listing. And if there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of properties on, the picture is the only thing that's going to make the property, your property, stand out. And what it means for you, if you rent it sooner rather than later, it's more money. It stops the cash bleeding out of your bank account. Now, as we all know as landlords, whatever you lose now in a void never, ever, ever comes back. So when you look ahead or you look back over the last, 12 months, because it sat empty for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, even 4 months, over that period of 12 months, you actually got a ridiculously low return from that asset. Now, these things don't cost a lot of money. They don't cost a lot of money to dress and style the property. So forget all the excuses, which we come across lots of landlords that don't think it needs to be dressed and styled. Let me give you an example of the property that I looked at last year. It was a student property that used to rent for around about £2,500 a month. Now, it hadn't rented for a very, very, very long time. The property didn't even have a path. It didn't have a path to get to the house. So the curb appeal straight away, anybody coming had to walk across muddy grass to get to the house. Even students didn't want this property. Not even students. Now, I don't mean by, students have like lower expectations in general, but I mean even students were fussy by saying I could get a lot more for my money and a lot more value, and at least it has a path, and I don't get dirty every time I go in and dirty every time I go out. Okay? And to be fair, this property didn't have any dressing, didn't have any styling. It was like a mattress just thrown in the corner on the floor of every room. So we literally just went in there. I sent my team in there, my stylist, and we literally dressed and styled and photographed the property. And what it done is it probably cost around about £500. And then what happened? It was rented fast. Within a month, it was rented. And the price we got the property at was less than 50% of what we rent it for now. So let's just put that into perspective. We get more or less, or a little bit more than 50% more than the market rent that we paid for that property, just because it wasn't dressed, it wasn't styled, and it wasn't presented very well at all. And it sat empty for weeks. It was several months. The next thing is flexible terms. For any of you landlords out there, being stuck in your way from years ago, because when the market is booming, letting agents are just finding you a revolving door of tenants, or you're finding them yourself. That's absolutely fine in a great economy, in a booming market. But when that party is finished, when that's over, when the economy is contracting, when there's problems in the world and the coronavirus pandemic and everything else, you have to do things differently. And what worked back then doesn't work now. So if you have an empty property right now, you have to be thinking differently if you want to rent it, of course. If you want to stop the cash bleeding out of your bank account. If you want to get a decent return on that asset, on your investment, on your property. Now, I guess you do, which is why you're listening to this right now. So if that is the case, you need to think differently. So offering flexible terms, this is exactly what we did. Offered tenants flexible terms. Now, those terms can be anything from how soon they can move in. If they want to be in on the same day, we move them in on the same day they view. If they want the property for 3 months or 6 months or 4 months or 9 months or 7 months and 2 days, that's what they can have. If they haven't got a deposit, we let them accumulate the deposit monthly. Just charge a bit more and let them pay it monthly. If they haven't got good credit, we happily discuss a guarantor or paying 2 months rent in advance or putting them on a different type of contract in case they don't pay the rent. There's lots and lots of different things that we did, we do, we're doing day in, day out. And I set myself the goal of getting everything rented. Obviously, I had to get everything rented, but what I mean is I had lots of properties in multiple cities in, everywhere. Those cities I just shared with you, Brighton, Portsmouth, where else are we? Southampton, Bournemouth, Sandbanks, Poole, and some other areas that I'm not even thinking about right now. But we had properties in lots of different areas, all empty at the same time. Now, as you guys know, I love cigars, okay? Have to be Cuban. Got to have a nice, big, thick ring gauge. I love the torpedoes right now. It's my most desired or desirable cigar. So Monte Cristo, number 2, Cuban. I absolutely love that iconic cigar. I've just gone through a box of 10 and I smoked my last one. I have other cigars in the humidor now, which I'm looking at in my office, but none of those are the same as the Monte Cristo number 2, the Cuban cigar. I absolutely love that cigar. Now, what I said to myself is I'm not allowed to smoke that cigar, my favorite cigar. I'm not allowed to smoke that at all until I've filled every single property that I have, that my partner has, which is my partner, not business partner, and also my JV partners, their properties as well, because ultimately I'm responsible. I help them, I mentor them, I put the funds in, I coach them, I help them find deals, I help them structure deals, I put the fires out, I deal with the problems. They do all the frontline stuff in all these different cities, but my company invests in them and holds their hand and finances their deals and manages the properties for them centrally and puts the fires out. Because they're very good at what they do, but because they don't have the background, the track record, they haven't been through recessions in the past and the booms and the busts and the problems and everything else that can come with a property business that you don't know if you've never been through it before, and that's where it can all fall apart fast. So I set myself the goal or the target that I was not going to smoke my favorite cigar, the next cigar, until I have let all of the properties. Now, I smoked that cigar on the 10th of April. Friday the 10th of April, because that's when we plugged the leak on all of the properties in my portfolio and our portfolios and partners' portfolios that were bleeding cash. Now, right now, so I'm very pleased about that, to be fair. Very pleased, and it tasted amazing as well. As it happens, on that day, we did another deal as well on that day. Took on another property during the coronavirus, in the heart of the coronavirus, and we got it at a much better rate. We got it at probably about 40% off of what it would have been the year before, the end of the year before in 2019. Probably 2 or 3 months before, we got it nearly 40% off So we're adding deals to the portfolio at the same time. When you know how to get them rented, know how to get them filled, you know how to make them profitable, we're still finding more deals. And right now, today as well, right now as I'm recording this, I've been looking at other deals with other companies for us to take on some of their properties at fantastic rates. Some of the rates are just unbelievable that you couldn't even imagine. You couldn't even imagine at what rates we're getting some of these property deals at. Right now, there's too many properties on the market, guys. If you're a landlord right now, there's too many properties on the market, which means tenants have all the leverage. Tenants have all the options, all the choices, which means it's a race to the bottom for landlords. Whatever landlord's prepared to accept the lowest possible rent, the lowest rate with the most flexible terms, they're the only people that are getting their properties rented, okay? And a lower price today means you'll get a higher return tomorrow. By renting it at a lower price today to get it rented means you get a higher return tomorrow. Because like I said before, and you guys will know, all of the voids can never get paid back. The void today, the void yesterday, the void last week, the void last month or the last 2 months, however long it's been empty for, you never get that back. So when you look back over the last 12 months of what you actually got the return, it's better to take a lower price now with more flexible terms, which equals a higher rent tomorrow. Don't lose your advantage by doing nothing after listening to this talk today.
He's a #1 Amazon bestseller. He's an NLP manipulator. He's a property course seller. He's a Lamborghini driving multi-millionaire property guru. Forget that same old boring I am me narcissistic podcast format, because nobody gives a fuck. This podcast is all about you. So I'm taking these few seconds to thank you for subscribing, to thank you for leaving your 5-star reviews, and thank you for sharing this show with all of your friends. My team and I will keep bringing you these episodes and answering all of your burning questions in my Facebook community group called Property Crash Course. If you can just keep telling all of your friends about this show.